I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of retention as a service agency, Electric. And today I'm joined by Noah, one of our closest partners over at Malomo. I'm super excited to have you on. So much for us to dive into and talk about here.
For sure. I think it's been a long time coming. I think I was just thinking about this. I think like my second week at Malomo, I was at Shop Talk in Vegas where we met in person. And then like 2 weeks later, I think you came on our podcast, and it was the first podcast that I had ever done, like not just as a host, but also just in general. So sorry you had to experience that, but thanks for putting up with me. And here we are almost a full year later. So it wasn't too horrible. That's the good news.
Well, before we jump into things, can you give everybody just a quick sort of TLDR on you?
For sure. Yeah. So I actually started a healthcare app out of college, which was 8 years ago or so now, which is crazy. I co-founded it with a partner. Neither of us were technical at all, so we had to go outsource product development. We did that with a small product dev shop in Indy called Sticks and Leaves. Long story short, I left that company a couple of years after we founded it. It's still in existence today and doing pretty well, which is awesome. But I left that company and have done about 4 or 5 years in MarTech, building go-to-market motions through partnerships. And this all comes full circle because the dev shop that we ended up working with early on with Safekeeping, my company, is where Malomo was founded out of. So the founders of Sticks and Leaves, who built our early MVP at Safekeeping, were also working with Shopify merchants. And they sort of uncovered the problem that Malomo solves for today as a result of working with them. And here I am, like I said, 8 years later, in building out their partnership go-to-market motion for the guys that I met all the way back when. So really cool kind of how it comes full circle. I like to tell that story.
Yeah, I think it's awesome how you all met originally and then have sort of reconnected here. And I think it's really cool to see like thriving teams that are, I think, both that are like friends outside of the office as well. So I don't think it always can work that way either. Like there's a risk to doing it as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Yao is our CEO for those who are listening. We had like we've had a quarterly touch base like over beers on our calendar ever since we started working together. So, it's been literally 8 years in the making. And, we didn't always meet quarterly, but it was on the calendar. So even if we didn't meet, we'd check in. And as they were launching Malomo, they ran this idea by me before they even had a name for the company. So I've really been, at least connected to it from afar for a long time, and really excited about, being on the team now and what we've accomplished here in my first year.
Yeah, I think it's been crazy to see how quickly you guys have grown. And it's been rather, I'd say, fast. It feels like it's been a while, but it hasn't.
Right.
A year or two, maybe, probably even less. But before diving into that even more, like, can you give everybody just a quick brief on Malomo? I mean, I know I talk about it all the time, so everybody listening probably already knows what it is, but I guess the quick 30 seconds on that would be great.
Yeah, 100%. So Malomo is the leading order tracking platform for Shopify merchants. Basically what Yao and Anthony, our co-founders, set out to solve for was they found that most consumers will not return to a brand after just one bad order tracking experience, shipment experience overall. Mm-hmm. And they realized that just by bettering the order tracking experience, versus what is available out of the box with Shopify, can not only retain a significant amount of a merchant's customers, but it can also be an incredible channel to grow LTV, as you know, Brandon. So that's the super high level, but happy to get a little bit more detailed in whatever way you'd like.
No, I think that is sort of the way that I like to present it to most of the brands that we speak with. And I think it's one of the, I'd say, few solutions that I know without a doubt when we implement it is going to generate a positive ROI, which makes us look good.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I mentioned that I've done a few different stints in MarTech, and most of those before Malomo were on the enterprise side. So worked for a couple different vendors, Return Path, Airship, which is a mobile marketing platform that would do like enterprise grade push notifications, in-app messages, mobile wallet, that sort of stuff for literally the biggest brands in the world, like Marriott and, you know, Chase and those types of brands. And then I was at a company called Movable Ink that creates dynamic email content for the same level of brands. And you can imagine like the implementation process and the time to value for something like that versus Malomo, where it's like, literally with a partner like Electric, you can better your order tracking experience, move everything out of Shopify and over to Malomo in like a day. And all of a sudden, you know, one of the craziest stats for me, Brandon, is 15% of all e-commerce web traffic goes to the order tracking page. So if you're an e-commerce merchant, literally in a day of implementation with Malomo, you're recapturing 15% of your web traffic. Like the time to value is just something like I've never experienced before. And it's really awesome, like super, super exciting compared to some of the technologies I've worked with in the past. That's not a knock on them. It's really cool to see a brand get such a quick win and a very, very fast ROI that we can sort of build on top of.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, and it still shocks me that so many brands don't have a solution like that in place. Like, I think more than half of my orders on Black Friday, Cyber Monday were through your standard just Shopify order experience, which isn't bad necessarily. It's just missing out on a lot of opportunity there.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the emails are one thing, right? Like it's great that you're getting the 3 or 4 Shopify notifications at least to update you on where the package is at on its way to you. But the emails are super generic, as we know. By moving them over to Klaviyo with our help, you have a lot more brand control. But I think the more important thing is like, with Shopify out of the box, you're sending a customer to a UPS or a FedEx page when they actually click on that email to track their package. Yeah. And like I said, if you're doing that, you're missing out on 15% on average of your web traffic. So it's really an insane missed opportunity for merchants if they're still sending them to UPS or FedEx rather than back to their own site. And that's not even taking into account all of the lifetime value boosting opportunities there are once they're on the site, like driving repeat purchases with an app like Rebuy or subscription signups with an app like Recharge. So tons of opportunity there. And Electric's been a great partner in bringing a lot of those use cases, and especially on the segmentation side, to life, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of talk track we like to use. Like, you could work with Malomo, and sure, you're obviously going to get a return, but like if you just work with Electric, you'll get a return. But if you work with the two of them in tandem, you're going to get sort of an outsized return that's greater than you would get individually. So I think is part of the reason why the agency tech partner relationships work so well. It's because the agencies can really stretch the solutions and do a lot of really unique use cases across a wide sort of range of clients and industries.
Yes.
And then it all just sort of it's like a flywheel in terms of once you get a couple of early wins, you get case studies, and you can start to go to market together versus doing it individually.
Right. Yeah. That's the one thing that's like super top of mind for me is driving client value through partnerships as like a first principle. I think a lot of times for folks like myself, like I was brought on to Malomo to grow our go-to-market. Like I was brought on to grow revenue. But that so that's the thing that is top of mind a lot of times for folks like myself and also for leadership. But I think there's a precursor to that. And it's like, how do we grow client value? How do we grow what we're providing for our clients through partnerships first and foremost? Because revenue will always follow that, right?
Yeah.
I think a great example, actually, Brandon, is like when we actually have a directive this year, and part of my quota is tied to referrals out to partners, which is awesome. We have organizational buy-in because we know that by providing referrals out to other tech partners and to our best in breed agency partners like Electric, that we know we can rely on to create awesome experiences for our shared merchants, that our merchants will get more value out of our platform. But at the board level, they're thinking that this initiative will bring in reciprocal referrals. You know what I mean? It's still a new business motion. And what I'm really stressing right now internally and with, counterparts of mine at other organizations is I agree that will lead to new revenue, but that should be the afterthought. The first thing we should be focusing on is this partnership is great for our clients in this way. And even if we never see a dime of new business revenue for making that referral out, we can be really, really happy knowing that our customer has up-leveled their experience because of this partnership. They're stickier over time. If they grow, that actually does mean more revenue for us because they're doing more shipments per month. And so I love thinking about that sort of in that manner. And I think hopefully you've seen like a couple referrals we've sent to Electric this month for that reason. Like I don't think we have to send Electric referrals anymore. Like we trust each other and we're going to do that naturally, but and same on your end, I know, but we do that because we know that Electric can produce for our merchants. And it's not necessarily like a new business thing anymore. It's that this is a great opportunity to up level the experience and the ROI you get out of Malomo with our trusted partner. And I think the same, like I said, goes on the tech side as well.
Yeah. And I think we don't look at any of our partnerships in that way either. Like, what is it going to give us? And I think
right.
Because for us, like we want to be a trusted source of information for our clients. And so if we point them in the right direction, even if it's like other agencies as an example, and it's just engendering more good faith and we're able to sort of lift both parties up. I think that's important. And I guess I could see how it can be difficult to maybe get that message across like the entire organization. But like for us, we sort of look at our commissions from tech partners as our number one client, which is not something that we did like intentionally, or not the reason why we invested in partnerships either. It's just sort of like an added benefit that sort of just fell into our lap. And so now it's really easy to show the value because you can actually monetize like money to it. But that, like, we would do it even without that. It's just because it's there, we're obviously we're going to log the referrals and use that as a way to sort of showcase our value to our tech partners. But that's just like an added benefit. It's not the reason why, because the ability to have another trusted party like refer you in the sales process is invaluable. It's way different if we have a case study from Malomo, where Malomo is preaching why Electric is so great, than if I'm the one doing it because I'm at Electric. So it's totally self-serving, and same in reverse as well. And I think that's why you see a lot of tech partners invest heavily in agencies, because as opposed to going like one-to-one with a brand, you're going one to many because you're plugging into an agency that'll have 30, 40, 50 clients, whatever it may be. And for us, especially at our size, it doesn't make sense to have multiple partners in areas. The only one we really do is subscription.
Yeah. It's getting crowded.
because it's getting crowded, and we just have to support it. But like for us, we have our preferred tech stack because we get a lot of efficiencies by working with the same team. Our clients get a lot of efficiencies by us working with the same team, because we can go to market very quickly with Malomo because we've done it 30 times before and we know the configurations that we're going to want to deploy immediately. And then from there, we can customize it to them. But we already have that sort of proven track record and ability to move quickly. And our entire team is experts in it versus if we were using, I don't know, like 10 different email platforms and not just Klaviyo, then we wouldn't be as strong in Klaviyo as we are right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm seeing more and more agencies kind of put a stake in the ground with their preferred stack, which is interesting because for most of my career, I think agencies have wanted to remain, platform agnostic and just sort of let the client decide what's best for them. But to your point, you lose a lot of efficiencies. You lose a lot of time to value, I think, when you don't sort of have a stance on, what the best in breed is and what that you're going to be able to put into effect very quickly to get brands up and running and see some of the ROI as soon as possible. So, my goal here is to make Malomo that preferred vendor. Most, if not all of the preferred or premier, I should say, Shopify and Klaviyo agencies across the board.
Yeah. And I think you guys are definitely going about it the right way. And by investing pretty heavily in the partnership side of things. And you're obviously reaping the benefits from that.
Yeah. I'm curious, flipping the questions on you. Who is doing like agency enablement and packaging really well? Like from what that would look like, Brandon, from a tech perspective is, an onboarding package that a tech provider, tech partner of yours has sort of sold to you in a way that you can then resell to partners. I think we've talked about maybe Rebuy doing something like this, but that's one of the things that's super top of mind for me right now. Cause it's going back to what I said earlier, like it's one thing that that like Malomo will always produce results for my clients, but how do we take that up a notch to make sure that you're also seeing some revenue maybe from the services side as well in terms of some sort of Malomo package that we can help you put together? And I know that we're sort of working on this actively, but I'm curious who might be doing it well and why that is.
Yeah. So I think there's sort of two different flavors to that. Like with Klaviyo, we do a lot of co-selling together. And there's a lot of mutual sort of lead sharing, but there's not necessarily a package per se that like they're selling to the merchants. Whereas with the Rebuy team, when they onboard a new client, I believe there's like 2 or 3 different like launch packages that they can potentially engage an agency partner for, because there's so many different components to their app. And obviously the more components of the app that the merchant's using, the more successful they'll be, the more sticky they'll be with Rebuy. And so we've executed probably like 15 of those at this point, where we have, these are the deliverables, this is the price, they'll cover some of it, but the merchant has to cover some of it as well. And then we're just sort of off and running. And for us, the revenue really means nothing. It's like smaller, like one-time projects. So it's more about just getting, being a support for Rebuy as like a good partner. And then also we have ended up working with some of these merchants on other things, because once they get introduced, then they understand and get a feel for what it's like to work with us and some of our more strategic insights that we can provide them outside of just that like little launch package that we're doing for them. So I think that's probably been the best one thus far.
Awesome.
And we've done some similar stuff in the past with like Recharge too. And it's just, how do we support one another? It's just the same objective for them. It's just getting net new merchants or accelerating the growth of merchants on their platform. Like that's one of the reasons why we work so well with Klaviyo, because once we start working with an account, it always grows in terms of the MRR that they are paying Klaviyo, because they get more email contacts, they get more revenue. And so it just, there's that component to it as well, which I don't think enough partner programs take that into account. It's all about net new wins. It is, and it's never about existing clients being managed or client growth, which I get to in a sense, but especially with some of these solutions where you're almost running out of like the low hanging fruit to onboard, like for Klaviyo, for example, or even Gorgeous or Recharge. And it's not like there's thousands of Shopify companies sitting out there that aren't already on their solutions. So I think it's cool how Klaviyo takes into account both referred and managed MRR, because then we're getting credit for like businesses that have already been on Klaviyo for 2 or 3 years, but now we're managing them and helping them grow on the platform. And so both get equated into like, are we an elite partner or not, versus just how strong are you at selling our solution, which I think is really cool. And they're like NPS rating survey that gets sent out to the clients too. Like, hey, is you having a good, is it a positive experience with this agency? So I think theirs is probably the most fleshed out of any of the solutions that we work with.
I love that concept, because we are in that sort of former bucket where we just measure, from a number standpoint, we measure partner success based on net new revenue brought in. Mm-hmm. But to your point, like if an agency, or sorry, if a merchant is working with electric, it would be really interesting, and I'm fairly confident that we'd see a ton of growth compared to, merchants not working with any agency, or a less qualified, less familiar with Malomo agency. And same thing for merchants, like, for example, on the tracking page that we're building for merchants, or that you're building for merchants with Malomo, some of our merchants will just put like very generic product recommendations on that page, like your best sellers. But if they have rebuy, they're actually able to get a lot more targeted and personalized with the product recommendations that are shown on a segmented basis. And so to your point, Brandon, like if that's driving incrementally more orders, we are actually realizing that through more revenue, again, on the per order per month, but we don't measure that in terms of partner attribution at all. And now I've got to go back to the team and figure this out, because as if we don't have enough attribution problems already, we got to add this. It's a huge undertaking. It's really cool to hear that Klaviyo's figured that out, at least partially so far. But I love that in concept, because I think you're 100% right. That's a very important measure of partner success, I think. And today, I would imagine most SaaS companies are not measuring that at all.
Yeah, and that visibility is helpful. And Klaviyo is the most advanced in terms of, I can see in real time what we've referred and what we are managing in terms of MRR, and then also how we can set goals together for increasing that. Whereas and I think it's just sort of an evolution, because it's good to have the actual numbers, but also just knowing like, oh, this partner anecdotally is helping our existing brands grow on the platform and making us more money, even if we can't get the actual like numbers yet. But having that visibility for me is really helpful, especially when it comes to like, what is the tech partner's priorities? Because then better aligned together on goals. Like we're going through this exercise right now with Recharge, and what are our goals for 2023, and digging into, like, for me, I need to understand what is the value of a net new merchant to you. And what are your priorities? Are there specific industries? Are there verticals? What are you looking for? How do we handle like net new versus legacy business migrating over? Because it's like, if you're net new, you don't have any subscribers yet, but you could be like, we're working with a $50 million business right now who doesn't do any subscription. So like, how do we model that out? What does that look like in terms of what it's going to be worth to you? And working through that as well. But I think knowing is half the battle, and then it's like figuring out how do we show that data to our partners in a transparent way, because then that gives us milestones and things to sort of benchmark ourselves against.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about a little bit of the sort of work that you've been doing for the go-to-market with Malomo. Mm-hmm. Are you primarily focusing on like distribution through agencies? Are you seeing a lot of just sort of one-on-one individual like Malomo selling to brands? Like, I guess what does that look like in terms of the split?
Yeah, good question. So for a little bit of added context in heading up partnerships, I am a one-man team currently, that sort of means that I work across the board with our agency partners, to individual consultants, to tech partners. And now we've sort of created this third category that I consider like logistics partners, which would be 3PLs and carriers and all that good stuff. So I'm overseeing all of that as a one-man team, but have a ton of support from the rest of our leadership team, as well as really the entire org. So there's, I think the answer to that is multifaceted, but in terms of what's working right now, it's what we call channel, which is virtually partnerships. Our channel pipeline makes up about 60% of our total pipeline. So more than half of all of our new business right now is coming from partners. And a big part of that is working directly with agencies, enabling them not just on the solution itself, but like how they can get their clients excited about it. So we never ask agencies to do the selling for us, but we do want them to be comfortable enough talking about the value props and what a merchant can expect in terms of lift if they are able to bring us on. And obviously the first goal of that is just to take a call with us, and we'll kind of handle it from there. But that would be an example of, a channel sourced deal. And like I said, right now that's making up more than half of our pipeline. So that's working really, really well. It's an area that we're going to continue to focus on. We're a pretty lean team, so everybody across the org is sort of supporting partnerships in their various departments in whatever capacity they can right now. But agencies is a huge focus. We typically see a lot more sourced revenue from partnerships coming from agencies versus tech partners. Whereas tech partners, sort of to what I was saying earlier, are really good at helping us influence deals. So for example, if we're talking to a merchant who came in through inbound, through like a webinar or marketing event or something like that, and we know they work with Klaviyo or Rebuy, we might tap those partners to put in a good word for us, make sure that the brand knows that we're a credible partner in that ecosystem. And a lot of times that will help us get deals across the line, but we wouldn't call that sourced revenue. So both super important, both have about twice as high of close rates as other deals. So awesome to see that data come through as well. But in terms of sourcing new business and going to market through partnerships, a lot of that is focused on agencies right now, as you know, Brandon, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've been hearing from more and more tech partners that they're starting to look at their tech partners in the same way they look at agencies for like sourced new business, getting more aggressive on that front.
It's a hard nut to crack. Have you heard anything compelling on that strategy?
It's kind of it's weird for us because like obviously we have the drinks app, but that's not a solution that is comparable to any technologies that we use because it's not a marketing tool. It really is the plumbing for your checkout from a tax and compliance perspective. So it's different in that we're probably the only app ever with Shopify where we literally have to be co-selling with them. Like Shopify is not out there co-selling with Malomo as an example, or Rebuy. Like it's more like, here, now that you're on Shopify, go check out the ecosystem, look at all these solutions that you can use. Mm-hmm. Whereas like you quite literally need to leverage the drinks app in parallel with Shopify if you're an alcohol merchant that wants to use the Shopify platform. Yeah. So for us, I think it's different in a good way and a bad way. It's good because it is so unique, but I'd say it's bad only in the sense that it's not the norm. So it's just like sort of creating new processes around how we should be handling these deals because it's not the way it's been done within any other vertical.
Yeah.
So, but like
we have something kind of similar in a way. So we're launching a big loop integration, which will basically allow us to extend the returns or the order tracking functionality to returns and exchanges as well. So super high level, you can initiate a return or exchange directly from a Malomo tracking page on your site. And then you can track that return and exchange back to the site. or back to the brand. If you did an exchange, you can track the new order back to you. And it just sort of brings everything full circle. Nothing like this exists today. So to your point, I think we're kind of figuring out like this is going to be a recommendation for all of our clients. It's going to be, Malomo is going to be a recommendation for all of Loop's clients because we are each other's preferred partner for this. We're the only ones with an integration like this that solves this particular use case. And so kind of creating a new motion that we do expect a ton of source revenue from, frankly. But we don't, we're still doing a lot of testing. Like one of my rocks this quarter, one of my 4 key strategies or key areas of focus is to figure out what Loop strategies actually work. Because to your point, it's not necessarily like a very standard, it's been done before partnership in our ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. I think that's exciting. I mean, you get to
100%. Yeah.
do things and then can probably translate those learnings and other things into different areas with your other various partners.
Right.
I think it's going to be interesting as more and more tech partners create add-ons to their products that are direct competition to their existing integrations.
Klaviyo and Attentive, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like that's the most obvious one, but then there's a lot of other stuff that's coming out where, just because of I think at a certain point, your product hits a level where it's how much more can you iterate on it? And it starts to become commoditized. Like I think of reviews as a product that is getting more and more commoditized. And so then where do you innovate and expand from there?
Yeah.
And like if you look at the B2B space with HubSpot, they basically have everything under one roof for most companies. And like we use HubSpot for everything. That's really our only software that is that integral to our business.
Yeah.
I think Yotpo is ahead of the curve in doing what they've done with acquiring all these other companies. Like, sure, it's been shaky how they've all integrated together. And I think they were probably a couple of years like early on that strategy, but now I think they're going to reap the benefits as they get better at integrating all those different solutions together to become this like all-in-one marketing platform.
Right.
That I see value in that. Like it is a lot easier if you just use one solution. Historically, though, the Shopify ecosystem has been use best in class individual point solutions that all integrate with one another. But I think that's going to evolve over the next 5 years through roll-ups and acquisitions or companies just running out of runway. I mean, how many different subscription apps can there be, for example?
Right.
it's getting to the point where it's like, how many coffee brands can there be selling direct to consumer?
Right.
And eventually the well is going to run out. So where do things go?
Well, what I find really interesting about that too is it's getting to the point where brands probably don't even know what they're spending on anymore. Like once you have 10 plus apps, like, do you really know what your monthly cost is for each? And could you make a cut somewhere if you needed to in a pinch? Like, do you know what's producing and what isn't? And that's, I said attribution earlier on a different topic, but I think that's a huge area where I would imagine there will be a ton of innovation around like bringing everything together in one attribution model or one sort of source of attribution truth, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because right now, and I've heard you talk about this too, Brandon, like across all of those different apps who all have their own attribution models, if you added everything up, you're probably 10x what you're actually doing in revenue, if not more. And so with all of these different apps and little consolidation so far, I could see that being an area that brands focus on and that there's technology innovation coming as well.
Yeah. And I think Klaviyo is uniquely positioned to start to become that, whether they start building things in-house or they just start scooping up some of these companies that are running out of runway. Or, I mean, there's definitely some technology solutions in the Shopify ecosystem I can think of that I don't see like an obvious acquirer for them, either because they raise so much money.
Yeah.
It's either like you go public or bust, or they just that's why I think some of the solutions we're working with now, like in 2023, that raised like towards the end of last year, or who have been relatively scrappy and have a smaller team. Like I would even look at Malomo as a smaller, like scrappier team than some of the other apps that raised a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
They're in a better position now because they don't have unrealistic like investor pressure or expectations. They aren't like completely diluted, and they're going to be set up for more success. Like I'm working with the team over at like Super Affiliate in Windsor, which are two of the new solutions that we've been rolling out over the past 6 months.
Yeah.
Just crushing it. And they're like eating the lunch of any of their competitors because of the fact that they're better positioned from a capital standpoint.
Yeah.
And in this environment, I think that's really important.
Yeah. We like evaluated the VC market early last year and quickly pulled back when we realized what valuations were looking like, and the fact that we don't need the cash right now, which is a great, to your point, right? Like great position to be in. We are super lean, super scrappy. We can't, for example, partnerships is working right now. We can't just go hire somebody immediately to double down on it because there's a lot of other areas of the business that we need to also focus on. But partnerships is working, and it's working with, me leading and everybody else supporting right now. So do we really need that person while being this scrappy? And so far we've been able to make do, and we will continue to do that. I'm perfectly fine with that if it means more runway for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
And I feel like allocating as many resources and money as possible to the product itself.
Right.
The way that I would be looking at things right now.
Yes.
Not having like a 400 person marketing team or something, as an example, being much more product focused and oriented, especially because there's not a ton of money getting dumped into like quick go to markets from other competitors. So you're not in this like hyper competitive environment where it really is crucial that within like a month or two, like you just have, I don't know, send everybody a free iPhone on a sales demo or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think the slower, steadier growth that's closer to profitable is what's being prioritized right now, and not just growth at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were just talking about this today internally, but I think with the plethora of new apps entering the space every day, and they're, to your point earlier, like they're getting more and more competitive. There's a lot of new, players in the Shopify ecosystem who do have to basically race to the bottom in pricing to win deals. And we feel very fortunate and well positioned that we're not there. Like we're going to sell on value, the value that we bring. We know that it will bring tremendous ROI. And so, we may not always be the cheapest or most cost-effective solution, but we feel very confident that we are the best. And so we kind of hold our ground on pricing a lot of times when others in our space might not. And to your point, I think that has a lot to do with how we structure our financing and what our runway looks like for the next couple of years. If growth continues at the rate that it is, we'll be in great shape.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to say no.
Right.
What we've started to do far more than we ever have before.
Right.
Because there's so many other hidden costs that go into supporting a relationship that doesn't make sense.
Totally.
I was talking, actually, I think I posted it today about how to like discount strategically coming from a brand perspective, as opposed to talking about software pricing here. But how to discount strategically so that you're not turning into a brand that's looked at as like low cost or low value, or turn your customers into just waiting for the next deal to drop. And I think it's important to maintain brand value and lean into it. Like don't hide from it. And it's just like how you're not going to work with Electric if you want to work with a team of a bunch of like I don't know, McKinsey consultants or something. This full like, oh, we have like 20 years of experience, like, because we're barely 20 years old. But we lean into that. Like we're not hiding from it. This is why you work with us, actually. So I think find that area, dig into it. Not everybody's going to be the right fit for you. I had somebody send me a really nasty email a couple of weeks ago about how they were thinking about working with us, but then they went on our website and our cursor is stupid and we're unprofessional or something. Like, no. Yeah, poor Bella. Her like she has no idea how much controversy she has. I was like, well, that's great. You sort of self-selected yourself out because we don't want to work with you anyways. I mean, like you're not a very fun person. So
Yeah. Well, I think maybe the most important part about all that is like especially on the race to the bottom is then where's the money to like reinvest in the org and reinvest in the product, right? Like we stick our ground on price a lot of times because it allows us to reinvest in our product and iterate on it quickly and come out with new awesome stuff like Loop, for example, where, we're creating game-changing integrations, but we need to finance that somehow. And so we don't like to lose deals, but we don't like to, we'd rather do that than lose money. So,
yeah, well, I mean, there's costs associated with supporting these merchants too. Like that's something that we're starting to work through on the drinks app side is building out a customer success team because we don't have that. And we're sort of building a Shopify app company from the ground up here. Electric, obviously not a Shopify app. The drinks company, historically, not an app company, very much so more on the enterprise side, one-to-one relationships. So this is sort of a new adventure for us here, which is exciting because learning a lot, having to do like setting up a Zendesk environment for a software product, something that I never thought I'd be doing necessarily, but it's exciting because you get to learn it. And it sort of takes me back to like 2018, starting Electric, just sort of drinking from a fire hose, all this stuff, like what's email marketing, what's SMS marketing, enough YouTube videos to kill someone.
You love those YouTube videos.
I do. I started doing TikToks now, which is, I still don't know how I feel about it. Surprisingly enough, I mean, we've gotten like 2 or 3 clients from it. And
wow. Okay.
Same with YouTube too. I mean, the following isn't tremendous in terms of like number of followers, but because of the content being so hyper specific and relevant, views and inbound flow from those 2 channels has been significantly higher than I would have thought it would be. Same with LinkedIn content. So we're focused a lot this year on how do we get more content out there, like even more, because we already do a fair amount, but like how do we get stuff like the Shopify Commerce 2023 report analysis that I did? How do we get that out there? And that piece of content can translate into like 150 individual ones and gets us, even if it doesn't bring us inbound, it's relevant in our sales deals because our prospects are like, holy shit, like they are publishing like a weekly newsletter. They have all this in-depth research that they're doing. Like they are clearly staying on the cusp of what's new and innovative. And I think that was a really great sort of transition for us at Electric is to bring on Elisa to take over the very like all the like day-to-day in the weed stuff with Electric, and has freed me up to do more of that, which is just making the entire organization stronger because now those insights every week are getting pushed through the rest of the agency, which I didn't have the time to do that before necessarily in a way that I would want to. And so that like sort of split role of responsibilities has led to outsized returns for us and made us a stronger, not only organization for bringing on net new business, but able to execute quickly and iterate with our clients on new trends and technologies like Windsor, for example. Like it's a solution that allows you to do the personalized videos via email and text. So like the returns there have been immediate, and not a lot of brands are using it yet because they're like a small, scrappy team. And so that gives us an opportunity to sort of arbitrage that particular feature for the next year with our clients, and then we move on to the next thing and the next thing while everybody else is still trying to catch up. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's kind of that founder brand approach that I think you do an amazing job of. And probably, like to your point, Elisa has, first of all, I don't know how she's been able to do it, but she's been amazing in sort of taking over that day-to-day in the weed stuff. And I shared your Shopify recap with our whole team yesterday because first, like, I love that, dude. I get so much value out of your stuff because I'm not going to read the 70-page report. Like, I don't know how you had time to do that and then write a 11-page summary, but I will read your
really fun weekends over here.
Yeah, all that's to say, I think it's fantastic. We try to do a bit of that with Yao, but all of us really, try to kind of create our own brands that also feed the business, and I love that as a strategy.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do more of, is get other team members within the organization onto podcasts and lift them up as well. But not everybody wants to do it.
I know. I was just going to say, it's a hard and really a delicate balance, because you probably can't push too hard on that, because it's not part of their role, but it's also great for the business. And, guys like us who have personal brands as well, we think that it's great for them, but if they don't want to do it, it's
right. And I think that just goes back to having honest and open conversations with your team in general about what their goals are. We had a team member who they don't want to be a manager. They just don't, but they still want to progress their career. And so we basically created almost a new role internally for them that's allowing them to still not only progress, but get paid more and so on. But if we wouldn't have had that conversation, we probably would have just promoted to a manager, and they would have hated it, and it wouldn't have worked out well. And so not everybody wants to be the CEO. I think that was something that originally back in 2017, I thought everybody wants the same things that I want, but that's just not the case. Everybody has their own goals, desires, both personally and professionally. And so part of your job as an employer is to figure out how to help them meet those while also aligning with the business objectives as well.
Yes. Great points.
Which is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, right.
That's why we have the podcast, so I can just talk, and it doesn't.
I love it. Right. Yeah. It doesn't have to. No. There's not going to be a report card after this. So all exactly. Good.
I think the new sort of management philosophy that a lot of companies are shifting towards is positive though around. I feel there's a give and take though with I prefer autonomy, but there needs to be accountability as well. Right. If you just give autonomy sort of without any reason, and then there's no are you actually delivering against what we need you to? Yeah. That can be sort of the negative flip side of the coin, I feel like.
Yeah. And I would probably argue that's more on management than it is the employee at that point, right? To set the right expectations and make sure that if you take that autonomous approach, that they're set up for success with that approach. I think that's probably harder up front, but you reap rewards on the back end because it's less oversight, allows people to, like yourself, do their own thing that grow the business rather than.
Well, we spent so much time and money on our onboarding process and trainings and resources and whatnot, because that first week is super important, both in anything, new clients, new employees, new tech partners, especially with the new employees. As we get bigger and bigger, how do we, and in a remote environment too, how do we get them up to speed and feeling like they are supported and enabled? But even almost more importantly is how do we make them feel like they're a part of the team as well? And then get them to buy into our culture of if you've worked at other places before, it's probably uncomfortable for you coming in as an entry level person with our expectation that you will have opinions and bring real value to the table and understand that there's nuance to situations. And you're not we give you these process guidelines, but they're meant to be frameworks that are continually iterated on and improved. But I think we've honed that in so well that I do a 15-minute call with all of our new team members or whatever, just to meet them.
That's awesome.
And one of the ones that I did, I want to say in December, I was with a team member. She was this first week has been amazing. I've never felt more involved in with the organization. She's but you did call out pretty specifically and multiple times that you're looking for feedback on the onboarding process. And so while it's been amazing, here's 3 things that I think you could potentially be doing differently as well that would have been helpful for me. I was that's awesome that we were able to get that out of her in just her first week. Her level of comfort with giving us that feedback, I think, is really important, and knowing that it's valued. And then we're going to implement it as well, which I think that follow through is super important too. Because it's
Yeah.
one thing to say it, it's another thing to actually do it. And I think a lot of employers ask for feedback. This is why we don't do anonymous feedback. I think anonymous feedback is stupid unless it's like some sort of like very specific HR issue. But if it's anonymous, how are you supposed to work with that person on implementing it and addressing it? So that's why we do not anonymous. But there's also the understanding that you literally say anything, like it's not going to be held against you, which I think is important to have as well.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. I love that you're still doing calls with all new hires. Like you got to be close to 100 now, right? And that's awesome. But yeah, the culture, like one of our core principles at Malomo is it's basically like accept other viewpoints, and it's kind of ingrained for us that we speak our minds, we challenge each other, and we do so like respectfully, but also with an open ear if you're on the receiving end. And to be honest, I think that's one that we definitely, live up to, because of all the great reasons you just said.
Yeah. I mean, feedback is great, and also doesn't mean you need to implement it. You can take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Take it at face value.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're running up on time here, but before we hop off, are there any sort of last things you want to drop? Want to let people know where they can find online or connect with Malomo as well?
Yeah. So Malomo is gomalomo.com. You can just find me, Noah Rahimzadeh, on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat there. So really appreciate you having me, and I will see you in Miami very soon. Excited to get out of this Indy cold and into some South Florida sun. I was messing with our team members in Texas yesterday, because they have an ice storm right now. Oh my gosh. I was working from the beach yesterday, and it's like 80 degrees and sunny, and I'm getting a little tan over here, or at least as tan as I can get. It's not great. I still think that picture of me and Yao is hysterical. Like the contrast. I'm so white. It's ridiculous. I need to get like a spray tan or something. That is one of my favorite pictures from last year for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to running it back with you, man. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, I'm Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.